It's Friday. Well, we're missing one.
Missing one. Then
We're
there were
missing
two.
one. We lost. We finally lost him.
Finally lost him. Yeah, I think he borrowed my sat nav.
He borrowed your sat nav. He's lost somewhere. He thought that this is gonna be a live,
Yeah.
and he's gone. No, Wes is sick. He's not gonna be able to make it, and that's
And we
the
don't
thing.
mean sick like that. We all know he's sick, but he's
Sicker than usual, like physically flu-ish sick. So he's not gonna make it. But anyway, I don't think it's a big loss. What do you think?
I bet you he's listening, he's watching and listening, and like he's gonna appear in the comments, just giving us.
He's also realizing how much better without him this is. So Ash, what are we doing? And actually, what is the water cooler as well for the people that join us for the first time to have to understand a bit.
And that's the thing. Every week we do see new people and new faces. What the water cooler is just us getting together, talking about brand, business, marketing, creativity, strategy, and we always have clever and smarter guests than us here. Because
that's easy. That's an easy win for us to find smarter people than us. But what we really mean is that like we always have secret guests, and those secret guests are the top exponent of that specific topic. We have Simon Dixon, we have Chris Doe, we had Rory Sutherland, we had Roger Martin Humeye, David Acker. Like we had some crazy wild people.
Yeah, and if you guys want to watch all those ones that we've had and you missed them for whatever reason, you can check out the YouTube channel Watercooler Brand Talks. Just search for it, wham, and you'll find us there. If you go to the videos and then the live tab as well, because we go live on YouTube as well, and you can watch the past episodes there. Subscribe and like, please.
Subscribe and like. Akon is here, everyone. Who else is here? Please drop us a message. Tell us where you're joining from. Tell us also from 1 to 9.99. How was your week? How do you rate it? And how was your week, Ash?
Mine was like 11, then it went to 2, then it went to 5, then it went to 6, and now it's 11 again because I'm here with you, Martin.
Yeah, without Wes, so even better. Otherwise it would have been like an 8, isn't it? 8.5.
Yeah, so maybe it's a 12, yeah.
Lena is here. Thanks for joining. Yes, Wes, get well soon. Shall we?
Yeah, let's. So the topic of today is about workshop facilitation. Me, Martin, and Wes do this all the time with clients in person and online. But it's always good to hear it from experts how they do things as well, and just get some further insight. So our guest today, she says it's a movement. Facilitation is a movement of ideas, decisions, conversations, and change. But the real question for many out there is, how do we make that movement feel effortless, engaging, and impactful? So that's what we're going to get into today. The episode's themed name is The Real Art of Workshop Facilitation. And we kind of talked about this in the background. It's not just about running a good meeting. It's about unlocking creativity, getting all the teams aligned, and really being intentional about designing the experience before the actual workshop based on the outcomes that you want to get out. So I guess it is an art and science. And like I said, we've got the perfect guest today. Having started her career in comms many years ago, she moved into the world of brand, working with heavyweights like Motto. Today, she runs her own business, which she has run for, I think, the last 7 years, which specializes in workshop experience design. So I want to give a warm welcome to the water cooler, everyone. It's Rachel Davis.
Woo-hoo!
Hello.
Thanks for coming, Rachel.
What was that?
Welcome to the water cooler.
Oh yes, well, I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah,
I'm not drinking water though. I'm drinking matcha, and
It's 6 p.m. in Cyprus, so I'm on a different sort of water, the beer type.
I'm on coffee, so if I speak really fast, then just let me know. It doesn't usually happen. So add anything to that? And in fact, actually, let's start with I did a little bit of an intro there, but you want to give us a lowdown? First, tell everyone what it is that you do and how you got into it. Obviously, introduce yourself and add to that intro. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to start with what I think is going to be the outcome for today, because, as a facilitator, it's not about talking about yourself at the beginning. It's talking about what people are going to get out of it. So I'm going to start there and then say a little bit about myself. But I'm hoping people kind of get a bit more workshop mindset out about this. I actually ran a really cool activity yesterday with a group called the Workshop Roast to kind of get people pretending to be workshop haters, maybe not even pretending, right? And so it's really about getting people to not fear the word workshop. And so that's what I do, right? I try to bring that joy and energy to workshopping, and I don't always call it workshopping, right? It's collaborative sessions, right? So it's about collaborative decision making, collaborative co-creation, right? That's really what I do. And you were right there. I run my own consulting business for the last 7 years here, and I help people create their own workshop experiences and tap into their own facilitator skills, even if that's not their role, right? Even if they're not if they don't think they're a facilitator, right? And I help teams do that, and then I run my own workshops as well.
Amazing.
What is a facilitator? What type of creature is it?
We're gonna go right into it, right? What is a facilitator? Someone who helps conversations unfold. So that is what I would consider a facilitator. And you talked about movement. That's how I actually describe it. I talk about facilitation as movement of ideas, movement of decisions, movement of change, right? It's starting somewhere to get somewhere else, and it's about that transformation in between, right? Emotional shift, behavior change, unexpected wins, things that happen in the middle, the messy middle.
Yeah. So I'm going to just rewind a little bit there. How did you get into, when was it when did you get the bug for it? Was it that moment where you did it once and you're like, you know what, I love this, I want to make a career out of it?
Well, I think when I first was doing it, I didn't know I was doing it. Right. And that's, I think, a lot of people who are like, I was like, oh, I'm just having a conversation with people, or I'm just running a meeting, or any of these things. Right. And I used to, I still do it, I guess, build a lot of communities. Even so, I was in a very not creative environment for the first decade of my career. And so outside of that, I was building communities, and we were having meetups, and we were doing those kind of things. And that was facilitating. And I didn't really even call it that at that time. Right. So I think being able to bring people and thoughts together, I always kind of did that. Even I think as I was coming out of college and into my first job, right? It's just something I always did, bringing those people together. I was actually on the AIGA Professional Association for Design board. We did a lot of that there, right? So it's just kind of bringing people together in those creative communities was the first time I did that. And then I just always ran sessions for my jobs when I was running design teams, when I was running communications teams, when I was part of communication teams and not leading them, right? Even then I would step up and lead sessions, and people would be like, oh, your meetings are so great. Like, I felt like it went by so fast, like in a good way. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should make that the thing I do, instead of just just on the side, like it just happens with the other thing I do.
That's interesting. Was there ever at any point where you were running these meetings and you ever felt that it's not an effective way of doing it, and then you started doing it in the way you're doing it now, or started on that journey, or were you always naturally good at this?
I don't think anyone's naturally good at everything. I'm sorry if you hear the long guy outside. Of course, they decide to come exactly when we're doing a live.
Wes sent them, by the way. He's boycotting this.
It is probably Wes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But this is, it's that's the power of a facilitator, being able to handle things as it comes and being
Yes.
able to pivot, right? So I'm actually, that leads me into the answer to that question, right? So I'm a recovering perfectionist, and what yes, still recovering, right? And even especially in the beginning of my career, like I wanted everything to be completely perfect before I ran a meeting, or like really perfect, right? And so I think that was actually a detriment to me when I was leading sessions, because I was so rigid about wanting to have it perfect and things like that. And I think it held me back as a facilitator, right? Especially in the kind of corporate-y type environment I was in. I was like, oh, I got to follow the rules. I got to do the thing. Now I'm like, screw rules, right? So it's that's kind of my brain shift there. But I think every expert was once a beginner, right? And I think just by doing it and continuing to practice, you really get to your own style as a facilitator, right? Because everyone's different. And if you try to be a different kind of facilitator than you really are, it's just like branding, right? If you try to be something you're not, everyone's gonna know.
Yeah. And when did you start? Because you do a lot, obviously, on Miro, and Butter as well, which we've not really used that much. But when was the whole interest in the online use of it? Was it through kind of COVID,
No,
or was it before
I've
that?
been doing remote before that, right? So I am from Baltimore, but then we moved to San Antonio, and from that I still had networks and people in San Antonio. We or in Baltimore. We moved here about 7 years ago, and so I was actually still had some clients in Baltimore at that time, and I started doing more remote. And most of my people that I work with are, I don't think I work with anyone right now in Texas. So it's mostly remote, but I do travel for in-person workshops when when people have the budget for it. I'll do that. So when I see a tool that I like, I start using it right away. I'm an early adopter, right? But I do a little something extra too. I reach out to the founders, and I do this with almost every tool that's like smaller and starting up and that I really like. I hear back from some, I don't hear back from others, right? So Butter, I heard back from them, and I started being part of their community and part of helping them build their community. So now I run the Butter mixers with Cheska. We're going, I think it used to be every month, and now we're every other month. But I really immersed myself in that because it's something that I believed in. And Miro, I've been using since before they were Miro. 2016, they were called Real Time Board. And I started using them for AIGA. We were doing a project for AIGA, and we're trying to kind of get everyone on the same page. And we used it. We were all in the same room, but we were using the virtual collaboration tool, right? Because we didn't have our own office with walls and stuff like that. We were always in different locations. And so we started using it for that, and I've been using it ever since. And I don't know if you heard the news, but actually yesterday they announced that
The collaboration.
they're doing courses.
I saw that. And I think it might have been through via your post. I think. What do you prefer, in person or remote, online, or have you not got a
that is a
preference?
loaded question. So I'm going to answer it kind of differently. I don't like both at the same time. So hybrids are a big no-no for me. I've done it and I've made it work when it had to happen.
That's
but
interesting.
Both at the same time, big no-no now for me. But I have things that I suggest instead of that if people want that. I love in person. I really do.
Me too.
But I have crafted online in a way where I feel just as good about it. I think both can be impactful. I think in person allows me to do different things like Lego Serious Play and playing with Legos with people in workshops and things that wouldn't be great virtually, right? But you can make virtual really great too. And you can incorporate the physical and virtual too. So if you have enough time and, again, budget for these things, you can send out welcome packages, you can send out physical things, or you can use something really simple like a Sharpie and paper.
Rachel, I want to go a bit deeper into why facilitation. Like, Why is it so needed? Why is it so important? And why do we have to have someone facilitating?
Well, first, I think for a why of workshopping is it's a two-way street, right? Like, so think about just sending a survey or something to get, or even just an email, even though that's kind of two-way. Like, I feel like it's email's my nemesis, just so you know, I hate it. And so, like, think about trying to have a conversation by yourself, basically, right? Like, it's not
every time.
It's not a two-way conversation when you do something like a survey or something like that. And I'm all about async communication, like Slack and stuff like that, but not for collaborating and movement of ideas towards a specific outcome, right? So, like, if you're trying to get a team aligned, it's much easier to do that through a collaborative session than through email, right?
So let's unpack that a bit more. So what is a situation that is good for a meeting, and what is a situation that is good for a workshop as well? So I'm trying to understand when should businesses consider, having a facilitated workshop instead.
Well, if you think about your difference between fill space and make space, are you looking for people to contribute, to give their ideas? For me, I kind of that's why I said I don't usually call it workshop. I call it session, right? Because a meeting can also be immersive, right? So the distinction I'd probably make more is when can it be an email and when can it be a session, right?
Yeah.
So you can have a status meeting if you want, where you're just spouting out, information. But I also discourage that, right? Like, if you're having a status meeting, how do you get feedback on that in real time, and get people involved in that, instead of just, because it can be an email if you're just telling information, right? Just send an email or send a Loom, right? Send a video, right? Like, if you're not looking for people to contribute and participate, then why are you having a session, right? I think, so for a workshop, if you're trying to get different views and perspectives and there's lots of different outcomes, right? Like, start with, what is your outcome? What do you want to happen at the end of this time together? What's the payoff, right? And if you can figure that out, you can figure out the transformation I was talking about. How are people entering? What's the payoff? And how are you going to get them there? That answer your question? I don't know.
Yes,
Okay.
it did. And what can you make us a few examples where workshops are the most needed? So based on your experience, where do you end up facilitating the most?
I think for alignment and clarity.
Yeah.
So
Foundational.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I also do brand workshopping, right, for brand strategy, and that's an alignment and clarity exercise with a team, right? Let's say you have a new team coming together. They don't know each other as well yet, and they're trying to kind of, maybe the outcome is, how do we move forward together? What is our shared goal, and how do we get there together? How do we communicate with each other? I think there's a difference between training and facilitation, although it can kind of be both, facilitator. But I think you really, again, have to look at your outcome. Are you wanting people just to learn knowledge, or are you wanting them to make a behavior change, or are you wanting, right? Like, you have to figure out what that outcome is. But let's say you're like a team lead or something, and you're like, well, I don't want to just have workshops for the sake of having workshops, right?
Yeah.
So always be purposeful, right? Okay, what does my team need to do in the next quarter? Right? It's like journey mapping, right? If you think of it from like a user experience perspective, or from a brand perspective, what are the touch points for my team, both internally and with clients, over the next quarter? And could that benefit from a collaborative session?
Yeah. And what is the current understanding of the power of workshop? Because surely these people probably know what's the outcome, right? But I don't know. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I think Martin was saying, like, what most people think in their heads. They have
you're right.
Their own agenda outcome, right?
You're right. Let's go one step before. They have the problem, right? So they have the problem, and at what point they get the realization that, oh my God, we need a workshop, we need a facilitator, because in my line of work, for example, I want a website, right? I want a website because the website will solve my problem. But in reality, it's just the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? There is much more deep into it. So I want to understand how hard and what type of challenges do you have that that the workshop will solve that problem, but client side, they are not really in that realization. Is that a thing?
So I guess because I have a workshop first mindset and I don't look at it as a separate entity from the project, right? It's part of the process for me. And I think it's part of the process, right? But I also think it's part of the process for other people. They just don't call it workshop. If you're going to do a website, you have a kickoff meeting, right? That's a collaborative session, right? So I think people it's just a matter of what things are called, right? Like, where is it already in what you're doing, and how can you just take where it is already in what you're doing and make it more immersive or more collaborative, right? It's just about that. And you don't always need a separate facilitator, right? Maybe sometimes where there's a lot of conflict or tension that you need to use the tension to get to transformation, you might want a facilitator outside of that. But as a manager or a leader, like, all your conversations are facilitation, right? You could be a facilitative leader. I think it's just a matter of changing your frame on what a workshop is and where that happens in your work, and understanding how that can help you, right? So you're talking about not understanding where it is or what's the outcome. So start with, we need to build a website. All right. So I would say use the how-to method, right? All the things that you think need to happen under the project, how to understand the goal of the website, how to match our voice on the website, all these things, and then look at them and be like, okay, we can't do all of these at once. Are there things that we need to dig into deeper with other people's perspectives to get to a decision or outcome? And that might be a collaborative session.
On that, so if it's internally businesses trying to get done, and there's probably one person that's really pushes the impact of workshops or collaborative sessions, as you call it, and I think that's quite a good way of talking about it, because sometimes there's going to be people, no, not another workshop, just for the sake of a workshop. But then there's going to be a lot of people that are just don't like the idea of workshops, but that's going to be the best process to get the right outcome. How would you advise people to kind of manage those people and try getting them into a workshop?
The first thing is, don't call it a workshop. People are bringing bias with them, right? And it's connected to the word. Focus on the outcome. We need to get this done, and this is how we're going to get there. I think a lot of it is about doing it differently than people have experienced before, and kind of changing their bias. One of the things is, let them get out their frustrations about it, right? Like, listen to it and try to work towards that. Like, I was talking about the activity we did yesterday called the workshop roast, where I made people become workshop haters so that the rest of the people in the room could become defenders and create statements that people could use with teammates or bosses or things like that, right? So if you don't understand why people are resisting, you're never going to get back past that, right? So the first thing is, if you don't ask, you're never going to know the answer. So you need to understand why they're resisting in order to make it successful.
Yeah. Rachel, how much of this are you bringing into your personal life?
In terms of those techniques?
Yes.
I don't really kind of separate my work. And a lot of people are like, work-life balance. I'm all about work-life harmony, right? Yeah. So because I'm doing what I really, really love. But it's interesting that you asked that. So, by the way, my husband's name is Wes also. So it's weird. So
no further comment needed.
So it was potentially Wes that was mowing the lawn then.
No, we have you for that, because we figure out where do we want to spend our money and time, and that is not
Your time is
I'm
obviously.
into that.
100%.
So we actually were on a podcast together as a couple about ADHD and neurospiciness and all that. So I'm a little neurospicy myself, and he is very neurospicy. So we were talking about some of those techniques that we in our relationship, right? That we actually share with professional, right? And I think one of the things he brought up, which I absolutely loved, is it's actually a workshop framework that I use, which is me, we, us, right? Individual time, small group time, like to get together time. And so he was talking about, so like in a relationship, you need your individual time, you need your kind of together time, then you need your time with other people, right? Like, and so it was an interesting kind of parallel that he drew there, and I was like, oh, I'm using that. So
Can you?
I love that.
What's that?
Sorry. Me and Martin even were talking at the same time. Go on, Martin.
No. I was saying I love that. Like, I have my partner that tells me sometimes stop strategizing and stop trying to facilitate with me. I've always tried like, why? How so? And what does tell us? And she's like, you have to stop using that language. We're having a conversation. I said, what language? I'm also having a conversation. So I know that there can be a blurred line, and how you manage people and deal with people from a workshop situation, you actually bring them back into your normal life as well. Because problem solving and facilitating and collaboration, it's such a big part of life, isn't it? And I love what you said about work-life harmony, and the lines are blurred.
It's funny you say that, though, because my husband and I also run workshops together sometimes. So he used to teach problem solving courses and things like that, so we just kind of speak the same language when it comes to that.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
The question I had was, so on that, the individual together and with others, give us an example of that in, say, the business setting or a workshop setting.
So that's the one I like to use the most, right? So not everyone thinks in public, right? So and that's the biggest kind of resistance people have.
Very true, yeah.
So workshopping, right? People think in different ways. Not everyone thinks in words. Not everyone thinks verbally. Not everyone thinks visually, right? So you have to create opportunities for people to participate in the ways that are going to help them be braver in that situation. So a me, we, us is even, I'm going to give you an example of just breakout rooms, right? So a lot of people hate breakout rooms. So what I do before I send people into breakout rooms is I have a me piece, right? I say, okay, here, I'm going to tell you the instructions, what we're going to do. And then you're going to have time individually yourself before I just shove you into a breakout room to self-reflect and write some thoughts about this first. You could use a piece of paper and write it down. You could use something digital. You can just keep it in your head. I don't care what you do, right? Put it in the chat, like however you do best. You could draw a picture, right? And then I give them that time. So I give people at least a minute but it could go longer depending on the type of workshop, what we're doing. Like I've given people before breakout rooms, like up to 10 minutes, right? If you're doing an individual reflection. And then they go into their breakouts, which is the small group, right? And they discuss that. And then we come back into the larger room, which is the us, for our share back. And you give them other opportunities for share back. So this might be where you use Miro, where you say, okay, and sometimes I'll have them have the Miro board already in their breakout room so they can write their group small thoughts down. And then they bring back what bubbles to the top to the group, right? But they've already gotten those things. And as a facilitator, that's better for you. You need to think about ways where people can document their own thoughts, right? So that you have all that information as the facilitator for insights and conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that.
Fascinating.
We do that a lot in our workshops as well. And I didn't look at it in that perspective, in that some people don't get the opportunity to share their thoughts in public. And when I mean public as well, is public.
Or they don't want to. Or they don't want to.
They don't want to.
Or they don't want to, yeah. Yeah, that's great. That is.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Rachel. Because, like, one thing that I love the most about facilitation, I think it's a form of, it's a bit of a skill and it's a bit of an art. It's process and fuck it up and owning it as well. It's kind of balance and unbalance in the same way, and I love that because, I'm half strategies and half creative, so I like chaos but structure in a way. It makes no sense. And facilitation for me is
flexible.
Exactly. And facilitation for me is exactly like that. You can be the most anal person in the world, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and yalla, yalla, yalla. Something will go wrong during the workshop.
Absolutely.
Something will always go wrong. So how do you, I guess my question, I think, is like, how can a facilitator become better and at ease with that aspect, of perfect planning, but also understanding that fuck up will happen.
Take an improv class.
Really?
Take an improv class.
You know that I actually thought about either stand-up comedy or improv.
Yeah, well, but improv is about things like building off other people's ideas and just moving forward from there. So the core concept of design thinking and yes and
more
it's kind of also and it's about, so this is why I started Miro Board Improv with my co-facilitator. We have one every month. It was to help me as a recovering perfectionist myself, right? It was kind of to help me let things happen. Cool. So if you look at the difference from, because the very first Miro Board Improv we did, like my co-facilitator, John, he will tell you, I was first of all, I get nervous before every workshop, but I was like nervous to have people like contribute on the board while we were designing, because we design a Miro board in real time with audience contributions. That's what it is, right? So now I'm like, all right, you guys just put whatever you want on the board. Let's do it. Let's just roll off of it. Because pivoting is what makes you an effective facilitator. You need to be able to understand the energy in the room, whether virtual or in person, and also understand that it's not about having the same level of energy throughout, right? Like imagine it's monotone, whether it's calm or super high energy, right? Like if you have that for the entire time, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to give people, you need to manage the flow of energy in a workshop. Maybe people need that reflection time, right? That pause. Maybe now it's after lunch and you need an energizer to get people back up, right? I call these like priming your brain
we
for what's next.
We call them Red Bulls.
Well, also Red Bulls, yes. There you
go. So Rachel, and this is an important one. Like you need structure.
So my one wasn't important, is it?
I mean, it was. But
should I go? Do you want to do this at all?
No, it was really important, Martin. But this is more important.
Fair enough.
But no, it's kind of it's related. A continuum. You need structure in workshops, but you kind of want a little bit of free flow and conversations that kind of just happen, because let's face it, some of the best insights come from things that aren't so structured. How do you kind of manage that when you've got kind of timings to stick to, when you know that you've got structures, but then you don't want to ruin the flow? How do you manage that? Do you just let them happen, or
well, I didn't used to, but now I do. I am a very structured person in my brain, right? So I use tools like Session Lab to create what I call a run of show, which is the entire kind of outline as a facilitator with facilitator tips and things like that as well.
Sorry to interrupt you.
But because of how Session Lab, it's a agenda planning tool for workshoppers, but it's more than just that, right? Like there's so many different things in it. You can adjust your timing. You could adjust it real time. You could share a link to it that's more detailed or just high level. It's really great tool, and I use it for both planning, virtual and in-person workshops. I use it for that, no matter what format I'm running it in or what tool I'm running it in. And so using something like that gives me the bumpers that I need. I don't like to call it like structure. Like, so like if you think about Bolt, it gives me like those bumpers that I need to know in my brain to be able to get to the outcomes I want. But then I'll make the decision, what is okay if I don't get to it? So I understand if we go longer on one conversation, what part can I drop out? How can I change this on the fly? And the way my brain works is I have what's called a swipe file. And so I have different activities or different tools that have the same purpose or outcome if something's not working, right? Because I'm not going to push something that's not working. Or if something resonates better with a group, I might say in the future, okay, we're going to do it this way and not that way. So I keep using this as an example because I just did it yesterday, but I had, for the workshop that I ran yesterday, I was going to do a wonder wall at the end for questions. But kind of with the energy I was feeling with the group, I'm like, okay, we're going to use the Q&A feature in Butter instead. And I don't usually have questions, but this was a master class, and so it was kind of wrapped into our reflection time at the end. But not that I don't like questions, I just don't like the Q&A portion.
That's really cool what you just spoke about there, when you know that something's not working and you can kind of see it either going the wrong route and it's going to go the distance of that wrong route. You have to introduce something else. So do you do that a lot? Is it about having the right tools at your arsenal and just picking the right tools as and when you need them?
Yeah. So it's partly about having the right tools, but it's also about the practice as a facilitator to understand what types of approaches or pivots are going to work for a certain type of group with a certain type of disruptor, a certain type of challenger in the room, right? Because sometimes I make up an activity on the spot, right? It wasn't in my toolkit, but for people who aren't that far ahead yet, yes, it's very helpful. And I actually do something physical with those two, even for virtual ones, right? Like I can write it in the session lab, but I have what's called a facilitator kind of field notebook, like the little field notebooks, the little ones, right? And I'll put it in my back pocket, or if I'm virtual, in front of me. And I kind of use those sticky tabs for different sections of the workshop. And that's where I have some prompts or different activities or things written for me if I need to flip to something quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Rachel, I think one of the most interesting things about facilitation is a group dynamic as well. I think I both fucking love working with people, but I also fucking hate working with people. Again, there is no middle section. I think people are the pain and the glory of workshop, and there is always a saboteur. There is always a controller. There is always the quiet one. There is always the
absolutely.
So help us understand how you go about, controlling group dynamics and difficult situations.
Well, I don't use the word controlling. It's the first step, right? Because it's about kind of guiding people to lean into what's going to help them participate best, right? So let's say you have someone who's talking a lot. It's about what kind of prompts as a facilitator, or what kind of things can you do to reshift that energy, right? So maybe they're talking so much, you're like, oh man, you have all these good ideas. I wonder if you could come up here to the wall with the Post-its and kind of be my scribe for a second, right? Like write down some of the things that you're thinking, but also that other people are saying. Like give them like something to focus their energy. You might have someone that's like a know-it-all or something like that. That's probably because they're really passionate about the specific topic, right? So what you might do is before a workshop, kind of understand what people really care about or are passionate about, and call this person out in a good way when you get to. So like, let's say someone's really passionate about customer experience, and you're that's their thing, right? You might get to an activity about that, and you might say, hey, Ash is really, really passionate about customer experience. I wonder if he could, kick us off here and tell us a little bit about the motivation for that before we even get into the activity. And if you kind of give them the spotlight for a second, and then you follow it up with, all right, great. So if you have a question about this when you're doing this activity, go to Ash, right? Give them this kind of way to participate that feels best for them.
Makes sense. So you're facilitating them towards an outcome that will be beneficial for the whole group, let's say, in a way, right?
Yeah. And then if it's a quiet one, things like the me, we, us really helps with that, right? Like instead of saying, I'm going to call on you to talk now. You might see that a lot of people aren't talking. You might say, okay, everyone, now I kind of want you to write some of your thoughts in the chat.
But
right?
again,
Just
you're
on the
doing it
fly,
for that specific person. So there is a lot of room reading skills involved into that.
Oh, well, you for something like that for the chat, do it for the whole room.
No,
so
of
you're
course,
not
of course.
calling
No,
that
I mean,
person
instead of
out.
calling him out, you're actually doing a group activity to go and
yes.
reflect by itself. But in reality, you're trying to get contribution from that more quiet person as well.
Yeah, giving everyone ways to contribute that work for them.
Yeah, makes sense. And then going back to your point, because I think a lot of the good workshop and the flow also goes back into your energy and keeping things up, and these are long days as well. And like when me, Wes, and Ash work on a workshop, we always have the workshop, calm down after 2-3 days of workshopping. Like we are so deprived.
Yes.
How are you holding up, and how does that work with you?
Well, if you ask my husband, and I agree with him, I'm, mostly an introvert, right? Which he wouldn't.
So it drains you a lot workshopping then.
It does. It drains me so much, right? Which is also why I try not to have workshops on a Monday or a Friday. So I only have, right? But just because I need that time before after, and I try not to schedule like one right after another as well, because even if it's in the same series, people in the workshop also need that decompression time. So like if it's like 2 brand strategy workshops for the same team, like I try to make sure that there's at least a day in between, so that people have a chance to, again, they were not thinking in public. It gives them a chance to think about what was said, get some insights that maybe they want to contribute next time that they didn't get out of their head right away. So it's for both. I think need that decompression time.
I want to go back to one of the earlier things that you mentioned, but then Martin just butted in as he usually does, and he took over the conversation. So
wait a second, is it more important than my question?
It always is.
You know what? I'm gonna go.
Come back, Martin. So you mentioned, he really has gone. This would be the first one of a live where someone has walked off and they don't come back. Oh, he's back.
No, I can. This is my highlight of the week. I cannot miss it. This is the 1 hour I get to enjoy my life.
It really is. And when we've got a wonderful guest like Rachel, definitely. So Rachel, you mentioned that you would never, but you have done before, do those hybrid sessions where it's the live workshop with people on their laptops with Miro. What is it about that you? Because I wanted to go into the do's and don'ts. So what is it about that you feel that you shouldn't really do, and why?
So I will say also, I'm not a fan of absolute shouldn'ts, right? For every situation, it's different, right? And it's more about what works for your situation, because I don't look at it as hard do's and don'ts, because sometimes I just break the rules anyway. So, but for hybrid, the reason that doesn't work for me is because it just, as a facilitator, especially if you don't have a co-facilitator, it's hard for you to kind of keep a pulse on what's happening, both virtually and in person, right? So for the time that I did it, it did work really well because I had 2 co-facilitators, and one was kind of taking the things that were on the wall physically and translating them virtually onto the Miro board that we had for the virtual. And the other person was translating things virtually to physically, so that we could match the environments, right? And there was also an OWL conference camera in there, so it was able to follow me around the room for the virtual people, right? And then the other time I did hybrid, we only had 1 person virtual, and I gave one of the participants an iPad, or I think they had a laptop or an iPad, where they could be the buddy for the person who was virtual, so they could keep them involved. But first of all, it's a lot of extra work. So if you're gonna do it, charge more. Right? Charge more, right? Because it's a lot of work to kind of keep it on track, and to kind of read both of the energies, right? Like, so you can read virtual energies really well. I know a lot of people say it's better in person, which it is, but there are techniques to kind of understand people's body movements, even virtually, if they're on camera. But you can also set the expectations for that before a workshop. But it's hard to read both at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely get that. So I didn't think of it that way in terms of the hybrid of someone actually doing it remotely and doing it. What I actually meant was having a session where people have got their laptops and the Miro boards in a live session. And the reason I suppose the use case would be for that is when you've got different people of different businesses working on a problem for them. So that's what we've done before. And we've done it a few times. It's not a regular thing, but there has been a need to do it, and it is bloody hard. It's difficult.
It is. I'm not a fan of a couple of things. I'm not a fan of slides, right? So I don't like that. And I've started to do more graphic facilitation and visual facilitation, things like Word, things like that. If people are working on their own businesses and there's something I can do, and we're in the room physically, and there's something I can do physically, like a printed journal or something that has some of the pre-made prompts or something like that, where they can disconnect virtually so that they're paying attention to what's going on. Because if someone in a physical room has a phone in front of them or a laptop in front of them, you're going to have the same issue of multitasking, right? And there's ways to handle multitaskers, right? But I think just think about different ways, different channels, different ways to do things. Like, do they need to really write about their business? What about a Lego Serious Play workshop? Could they build something about their business instead of using writing? Could you give them something to draw and then you translate that into an insight afterwards? Make momentum after the workshop. Take everything we did today. Here's some insights and observations I'm going to give you as a facilitator. And now your job, because this helps them keep momentum, is to take what we did today and now go back to your laptop. So
Rachel, I love what you say, but also I love it and much more from a personal perspective, because I'm both also a recovering perfectionist and also an introvert. I also get drained by workshopping. So I want to understand a bit more about your journey, because it's not exactly a linear path for a recovering perfectionist introvert to become a facilitator. So how did you go about that, and what did you learn, and what can we learn, and the rest of us that might be also on the same path?
I think it was community that helped me get there, right? So a lot of when I first started, right, it was a lot of like, well, I can't do this alone, even if I want to. And so I think it was part of me saying, okay, well, I'll join a design association or something like that, right? Like I'll kind of put myself in community. And my background is in communications, so I have this tendency to want to share all the knowledge, right? And I think that's, even as an introvert, right? Like send all the links, share all the knowledge, right? Like that's what I wanted to do kind of, 20 years ago. Like when I was joining communities. And then my brain was like, all right, these communities are great, but I think I could do it better. Right. And so my perfectionist brain kicked in and I was like, all right, now I want to start a community. So my now husband and I started Code for Baltimore under Code for America. And so we started a community and we grew that from 0. I think it's like 3,000 when we passed it over, when we moved to Texas. And for that, I was like, okay, well, now I can kind of craft experiences, right? Because before I was kind of crafting experiences design-wise, user experience-wise, and I was like, all right, well, now I can craft it for like people and see the outcome in real time, like of them having this experience. And so I think that's where I think it's that balance of my perfectionist brain with my neurospiciness and then my kind of selected introvertedness, I think is what a selective introvert is kind of what I would call myself. But my perfectionist brain was more powerful at the time and was like, I can do this better.
Yeah. And what are you working on next for yourself then? Looks like you had a defined path, step by step, pure processes to get in the next version of you and the next version of you. Where is your current focus then going the most?
I mean, I love facilitation and workshopping, and so I've started kind of making sure that's the core of what I'm doing. And the thing that I really want to do more of this year is what I call fractional facilitation. So I want to be able to go into teams, right? And they don't have to be a team of facilitators. Like, it could be a design team, it could be a tech team. I'm speaking at an agile community in April to Scrum Masters. It's a Scrum Masters universe, I think is what they call it, right? It could be a team of anyone who's like, we just want to collaborate with people better in sessions, right? And so, if they're like, okay, we don't have facilitators on our team, we don't really want to hire a full-time facilitator, but we're going to do something fractional, like a fractional CMO who comes in and sets people up to be able to do that either for themselves or hire someone in the future for that, right? So thinking about design systems, like setting up facilitation systems for people in kind of that same vein, helping people discover their own facilitation style and how to apply that. I'm going to go into brand strategy here for a second, right? How to apply that aligns with the company's brand and kind of get a facilitation mindset for the company so they can also have their own style but align with the facilitation mindset of the company. So that's kind of what I love to do.
That's great. And Rachel, I guess the other question for you is like, what is your relationship with AI? I know you're a bit of a super enthusiast for new tools and everything. So what's your take on AI? And the follow-up question to that will be, is the role of a facilitator in danger or even more relevant?
Oh, absolutely not in danger. So I actually just did a session on using AI as your buddy in workshop design. And so I'm actually a fan of AI so you have to put your own brain power with it. But even as like a solopreneur, I think it's really helpful to kind of be like, hey, I have this idea, or here's the outcome of the workshop. I've done some activities around it like this. And can you give me some other ideas? Like it gives me a spark of an idea for something.
Totally love that.
Yeah. Now the session I did, right, like it was super quick because we were an hour. So the way that I showcased it, I actually learned from that. And I'm like, okay, well, the way that I showcased how to use it isn't actually always how I use it. And so I need to change that a session in the future, right? Because I had to give us a whole workshop, right? And then we picked out the different activities and we remixed them, right, based on our own experiences. And just like anything, right, being a good facilitator is about your own background, your own experiences, your own style, and you need to put that on whatever it is.
100%.
Whatever tool you're using.
Whatever tool you're using.
Yeah, we had a situation like that where someone had some ideas, and then she was, well, I usually then go to my team and then explore further routes and ideas, and we just encourage. Well, now you've thought about it, you've not got your team here, use AI and have that springboard of more ideas on that same path that you already started from yourself. So I think that's a great answer, in that it shouldn't just be a look, copy and paste. It should be have the ideas first, then generate more ideas based on that thought.
Well, it's the concept that your first ideas are always shitty, right? And so how can you go past the first ideas? How could you, right? And this is just a tool and a way to kind of help jumpstart your brain to do that. So
you know what, the chat has been on fire. So Rachel, you should really definitely go back to that. And I think you were mid-flow on something, so I didn't want to interrupt, but someone was already asking about getting training and like workshops and stuff. So we put some links in, but I think also follow you. I think you've got some links on your profile and your website. Do you want to share them with you?
Tell us a bit more about that, because you're a Pandora base for resources. There is a lot people can can see from you. And that early kind of that love of sharing and giving, you still have it, and very much so, because I really enjoyed your website as well. There's a lot of that. Tell us a bit more about that. What people can get, and where they find it, and where they can pick your brain and all your little secrets.
Yeah, I think you shared already. I have an epic guide to facilitation resources, which includes things like what books to start with, what podcasts, who to follow on LinkedIn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are several trainings out there. I will say I'm not certified in facilitation, because for me it's about kind of discovering that yourself. I run several workshops on facilitation as well. Right now they're all free community workshops, and I'm working to translate those into potentially paid things people can do more in depth with. I also offer 90-minute one-on-one sessions with people if they're like, I have all this content and I might want to make it into a collaborative session, but I don't know where to start. And those are the people who usually come to me for that, right? And that's something people can do with me. I do free coffee chats before that, right, to see if it's a fit, to see if it's something for them. But I think in terms of resources, I think the biggest thing a facilitator could do is take their knowledge from other industries and areas, right? And so think about the skills that you already have and that you've gotten from other things, and how you can strengthen those for things like facilitation. Like I said, there are courses out there. There's the AJ and Smart Workshopper course. There's a couple other ones out there. There's a facilitation workshop by the Guild of. I'm gonna murder this because we're all live. I have to look it up and make sure I get.
That's
the
cool.
name
Yeah,
right,
just look it up, because what you could do as Rail Wager, when you do look it up, if it's not coming to mind, you can still pop it in the comments. You got it.
It's
cool.
the Guild of Working Designers. They have a workshop facilitation run by Hannah, and I've done workshops for that group as well before. And that one I think is a really wonderful one. Even though the group is kind of geared towards designers and UX designers, the facilitation course is just very robust, really great. So
amazing! Thank you,
Rachel. I'm gonna have to do what Wes does usually at the end of the section. So I'm gonna go with this question. The first question is, what do you sing in the shower?
I don't think I sing in the shower.
That's the usual answer.
But I do.
That's usual answer. And then he will say, "Come on, Rach, don't be shy.
Everyone
Tell us what is the last time
Okay.
that you have sung."
Well, mostly because I can't. I like my brain kind of goes. I think of ideas in the shower. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And actually,
shower thoughts.
Yeah,
Rachel
exactly.
has a whiteboard in the shower, everyone.
Oh, that's a great idea. But you have to, but how would it would like wipe off? I need to figure out how to invent that. But I do have a song that's like on repeat in my head lately. It's Fresh Eyes by Andy Grammer.
Right.
And I've been using it at the beginning of workshops lately because I'm talking about people seeing things with fresh eyes. So that's one's like on repeat in my head. So.
And the last question is this one Ash loves. Do you have a question for us?
Do I have a question for you? Yeah.
Yeah. Since we've been asking a lot about you.
Yeah. Did you learn anything new from me today that you're going to use in your workshops?
Lots.
Yes.
Which one? Which one was your favorite?
All of it.
I think the me we us, I think was what stuck to me the most. I am guilty of pushing people out of the comfort zone, and I think perhaps it's not the best way when someone actually enjoys thinking on their own space. So I think I've been guilty of that in the past, and I think I would definitely reevaluate. But I got a lot of validation into the fact that I also was not alone in the journey of going from perfectionism and introversy into facilitation. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it was painful in places. But and the other thing, it's a constant learning and a constant improvisation. I think that was also good. I loved it. Ash?
Yeah, me too. I think for me it was just like your perspective of things, like some things that we do, but we didn't do it with the right kind of, or not the right, but the same objective as you would do it, for example. So that is good to have that different perspective, because then you're you're probably going to get a different outcome for it, and maybe a better outcome as well. So
Yeah.
what was great, and I know everyone in the chat loved it as well, because there was lots of questions.
It
and
was on
there's lots
fire.
of- yeah, totally. So,
But I suspect because Wes was not here, I think that was a much better episode. That's why. But also because you're also okay, Rich.
Oh, thanks. But I think what I'm hearing you say, though, and this is what I say to people a lot, it's about getting those people in the room to go from have to get to, right? You want them to want to participate, right? And that's what you're creating the environment for.
Yeah. Rachel,
Amazing.
thank you very much. For everyone that listened to the episode, please go and check Rachel's work out. She has an incredible website with tons of resources out there. So if you're into this, getting into this, or improving this, she has lots of stuff that will help you out. Go and check out our other episodes as well. We had some really good guests. Please subscribe, share, tell a friend, support. I don't know, speak to someone about this, because it's happening every other week with great secret guests. And Rachel, have a lovely Friday and lovely weekend. And thank you so much for gifting us some of your time. I know that you're a very busy woman.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I feel like I could talk to you all day, but I won't, because I know it's the evening there. But we should do this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Ciao.
And thank you for everyone in the chat. You know what I love, Martin? When everyone chats to each other. And I think the great thing is, like, LinkedIn's good like that. You're commenting, but a lot of people, when they comment on posts and stuff, it's all about their opinions, which is important, but then also sometimes selling what I do. But here it's like a real, it's like a little community, isn't it?
Yeah, this is what I live for. You know, it is the content, it is us, it is, you know, the banter and everything, and having fun, but also seeing people connecting and finding new friends and new communities. And I think this is also the power of LinkedIn as well. I made friends, I made real good connection, and if we can, to stay in the topic, facilitate more of that, why not?
Yeah. It's all about collaboration. You never know who's in that chat that could be your next collaborator. So
you never know. And you never know who's going to be in this live in 2 Fridays. But it's going to be awesome.
Any clues? Any clues on that then, Martin?
I actually don't know. I actually haven't checked it. I know that we are booked until September, and every single person is amazing. Mark, your bus stop is 2 minutes away. Mark, I'll see you soon. I have beer called for you, buddy.
Yeah, let's say thanks to everyone. Thank you, Akon, Megan, Keith, Mark. You've been great. See you in a couple of weeks, guys. Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a lovely Friday and weekend. Ciao.
Bye.